Hi, I'm redoing my Clinical 4 reflection, and the weeks that I was at Bloomington High School for this reflection, I started tutoring. So I got to spend an hour one-on-one with a girl, and we went over different biology notes, and I started doing this then every week after that, and so that was really fun. It was probably one of my most favorite things that I got to do at Bloomington High School. And the way that we would study together is that it was right before a test, and so then we would get the study guide, which usually looks like this one. I have a copy left here, and we would go through, and I would ask her what she knows and what she doesn't know, and then we'd start with the stuff that she knows, kind of review it so that she can get familiar with it, and then we'll move on and spend more time on the stuff she doesn't know. Right here, there was a lot of stuff that is like mechanism based, and she was just having a hard time processing how to like do all of that and how one thing affects the other. So we went and used the diagram and filled it out, and then I had her fill one out on her own when she felt confident with this. And so we went through a lot of that stuff. A lot of it was chemistry based, and that's typically really challenging for students who are not familiar with it. I know I struggled with it a ton until I was in college and had worked more with it and taken more classes. So I try to break it down with her and just go over what she knows and what she doesn't know, and then go back and review. And so she said that she learned a lot, and she felt like she knew more than she did before and that she was prepared for the exam. And I talked to her a couple of weeks after that, and she said that she did better. And so I was really proud of her and happy that that all worked out. But I also know that the students also are not very motivated in that class, and so it's really hard to be able to go and like help with labs and stuff like that when they don't really want to take the time to understand things. I really liked working with this student because she just had a real hunger to learn, and she would try and she would ask me questions, and we would work on it together. But that's not really the case for like the rest of the class. The students are not motivated, and it's really hard to get them motivated. So I would try to go around and get to know them a little bit better and try to like help them see how one thing ties together to another. One of the students, I know I mentioned this in class, but they're like, oh, I can't learn this. This is science. I can only memorize song lyrics, but I can't memorize anything for science. And so I found a video for that class, and I don't know if my CT showed it or not, but I told her about it. And so for me, it was interesting to learn or see definitely how students are not always the most enthused about their classwork, and how it's my job as a teacher to find things that are relevant in their life to tie it into science. And so I also was able to work on labs with the students. And so my CT would let me introduce the lab and then tell them what we're going to do. I help in her biggest class. There's about 30 students in the class, and so we would typically just walk around the classrooms, and they're just in rows, and we would help them. A lot of them, the labs had to do with microscopes, and the students just are not very familiar with that either. And so kind of explaining what the fine tuning does and just the different lenses and how they go from like really broad to down to narrow, more specific. So some even the things that are basic to me, the students didn't really understand, and so it was kind of shocking to realize how much they don't know and how much is confusing to them, just because I have spent so many hours and so much of my time studying science, and it's just more of a second language to me, and it's so hard for them to understand some of the most basic things. And so after grading their papers, I began to see the level of understanding that they were at, and how you need to go back to square one a lot of times and explain what's going on and what's happening. One thing that I like that my CT uses they're called POGLEs, which are inquiry learning based packets. And so a lot of the times there's just an example, and then there's a lot of questions, and then you look at the example or the diagram, and then you have to infer the answers out of it. And that's really hard for students to do unless they have a base of a base in science and that they know kind of what's going on. But I also like that she would give them about a week or two to work on them, and you could hand them in at any time. She would grade them and then put some feedback on it and hand it back to the students, and then the students could revise it. So I thought that was really good because it lets them work with the material that they have, and they can see where they're wrong and where they're right. And so overall, I think that the 2 weeks that I spent for Clinical 4 was really good. I was very encouraged being able to tutor one-on-one. That's probably what, like I said before, my most favorite part of Bloomington High School experience. And so I know that I have learned a lot of things that I will take into my classroom in the future.